Maria C. Pastore Passaro is a professor emerita of Italian at Central Connecticut State University. A medieval and Renaissance scholar, Professor Passaro has published widely on Italian literature. She is the author of Representation of Women in Classical, Medieval, and Renaissance Texts, and co-author of selected writings of Girolamo's Savonarola, Religion and Politics, 1490 to 1498. She was the recipient of the Excellence in Teaching Award and of several academic honors from AATI, MLA, NEH, the Agnelli Foundation, NIAF, and Fulbright.
I presented this book at the CCSU library when it first came out in 2019, and my chair was there at that time, right? I was scheduled a few times to present it here as Central Authors, but due to the pandemic, it was postponed at least 2 times. A selection of Italian medieval literary texts is a dual language edition, Italian and English. It is based on 2 courses I used to teach here at CCSU. Italian 470 in Italian, and they were my students, and Humanities 250 in English. I like to think that this book is a literary journey, the story of the Italian language. I will try to give you a summary of the book. It is divided in 4 sections: the introduction, Dante and a selection of popular cantos from his comedy, Petrarch and some of his popular poetry from the Canzoniere, Boccaccio and some of his popular narrative from the Decamerone. The introduction starts with the fall of the Roman Empire and the linguistic fusion of the Latin language in the countries that Rome had occupied. Latin remained the written and spoken language of the court, the academy, and the church. In Italy, before Dante wrote the comedy in Italian, he had to prepare the soil for the event. It wasn't easy. He had to give us a language. In the De Vulgari Eloquentia, a small text that Dante wrote in Latin, the poet investigates the birth of language from the beginning of human civilization, told by the Bible. He extends his research to the development of language in Asia and Europe, giving particular attention to Greek and Latin and the various dialects. To find the best language for Italy, he hunts among 14 dialects of the Italian peninsula: Sicilian, Neapolitan, Pugliese, Calabrese, Milanese, and so forth. He discovers that the language used by the poets of the Dolce Stil Nuovo, the sweet new style, is the language that he's looking for because it is illustrious, cardinal, courtly, and curial. It's the perfect language. And of course, the need of grammar, he also goes into that. Thus, the Italian literature begins with religious poetry. Francis of Assisi and his Cantico, in praise of all that God created, the sun, the moon, the earth, the stars, the universe. And the drama of Jacopone da Todi, the lament of Mary. In the text follow some examples of early short stories from Il Novellino. From Umbria, poetry flourished in South Italy at the court of Frederick II in Palermo, Sicily. I included 2 poets of the Scuola Siciliana, the Sicilian school. Examples of poetry from the Dolce Stil Nuovo, the sweet new style, are also included. Poets like Guinizelli, Cavalcanti, and Dante himself during his youth. Love is the object, of the sweet new style, the woman gives beatitude to men by means of greetings and by contemplation. The woman celebrated by these poets is a noble Madonna, whom anyone can meet in the street. She is an aristocratic and lovely lady that goes out in the company of her friends and whose beauty shines on all those who surround her. You may look at image 1 on your handout. I will give you numbers as we go by. This is what Beatrice is for Dante. The young poet writes La vita nuova, the new life, in which he describes his feelings of love. Negli occhi porta la mia donna amore. My lady carries love within her eyes. And tanto gentile e tanto onesta pare la donna mia, quand'ella altrui saluta. And you have it in English. My lady seems so gentle and so pure when she greets someone. Well, that would be number 2 that we go to, and I think it is on the first page. Dante ends this book of memory promising us to write, and I quote, about her that which has never been written about any other woman. That's image 2. And indeed, he does so. In order to see Beatrice, who is now in heaven, near God, he builds for her a monument. He writes his comedy, what we know today as the Divine Comedy, divided in 3 books, Inferno, Purgatorio, and Paradiso. The Divine Comedy is a type of encyclopedia of the state of human knowledge of that time, and includes all genres. It is a comedy because it has an happy ending, but some tragedies are included. It is a book of adventure. It is an epic text. It enters the tradition of vision and prophecies. It includes dialogues between the poet, Dante, and Virgil, his guide. Therefore, it's like a teaching book also. Dante puts himself in the mind of the reader and asks Virgil questions that we would ask. As the poet gains understanding of human condition, he becomes physically lighter during the process of enlightenment, a trope that continues throughout the levels of Paradiso. As Dante explores heaven with his new guide, Beatrice, a woman. The lady of the Vita Nuova takes over from Virgil the task of educating Dante, because only one inspired by divine wisdom could continue to guide the pilgrim on his journey to the mind of God. This allegorical lengthy poem begins by describing Dante as a traveler. He embarks on a journey toward the spiritual destination of all human beings. He narrates in perfect endecasillabi, or iambic pentameters, a prolonged adventure that leads him to spiritual regeneration. In the first canto of Inferno, and you may look at image 3, we see Dante, the pilgrim, lost in a wild and dark forest. I quote, nel mezzo del cammin di nostra vita, vi ritrovai, but I will stop with that, in the middle of our life. He doesn't say my life, he says our life. The pilgrim is in a state of confusion. He's in the middle life crisis, I would say, which all of us will go through, or we will go through sometime. And that's image 4. But he clearly desires to exit the wildness and climb a sunlit mountain that he sees at a distance. But he cannot venture toward the mountain because 3 beasts prevent his passage: a lion, a leopard, and a she-wolf. And that's image 5. These animals represent 3 violent sins: lust, pride, and envy. Virgil, the Latin poet who wrote the Aeneid and who represents human reason, comes to free and redirect him onto the right path toward clear thinking, spiritual regeneration, and eternal salvation. Dante must go down to Inferno, climb the sunlit mountain of Purgatorio, and Beatrice will guide them to Paradiso. The first canto of Inferno is sort of an introduction to the entire Divine Comedy. The word paura, or fear, appears 5 times in the canto. The poet is in fear. The reader should be in fear because we are taking the trip with him. The second canto is the canto of doubt. Dante reads in our mind and asks Virgil, why is he allowed to journey alive in the underworld? Which is something that we may ask. Why he? He's not Aeneas, he says. He's not St. Paul. How can he, a man alive, see the underworld? Here Virgil explains to Dante why he took pity on him and came to save him from the 3 beasts. He was asked to do so by a beautiful and blessed lady. This is how Virgil describes her. Lucevan gli occhi suoi più che la stella. Her eyes shone brighter than the morning star. Beatrice says to Virgil that the Virgin Mary saw Dante in danger and asked Lucia, St. Lucy, to look after him. Dante was very devoted to St. Lucy. St. Lucy came to Beatrice, and Beatrice turned to Virgil because he was a poet and he will listen to a poet. The Latin poet says that there are 3 blessed ladies in the court of heaven that care for him. Dante is a live poet who will journey the underworld and tell us all about it. Canto 3, the frightening inscription on the gate of hell. Your picture would be 6, your image. And here I will read the Italian because you have the English. Per me si va nella città dolente, per me si va nell'eterno dolore, per me si va tra la perduta gente, and lasciate ogni speranza voi che entrate. Abandon all hope, you who enter here. Dante is in the ante-inferno and sees the souls of the ignavi, the indolent, those who withdrew from their duties and live their lives without praise or blame. He sees the soul of the one who made the great refusal. Here we can ask, who was he? Dante doesn't tell us. We must think. Was he Pontius Pilate? Or perhaps Pope Celestino V, Celestino V, who gave up being a pope, thus allowing Bonifacio VIII, the pope that gave him so much trouble, right, to become a pope? We have to think about that. The poet sees the river Acheron, and the devil Caronte, who transports the souls. Image 7. He describes Caronte with occhi di bragia, or with eyes of burning coal. The image of Dante's devil will be remembered by Milton in his Paradise Lost. In Canto 4, or Limbo, Dante finds the souls of those worthy of praise, who lived before Christianity and were not baptized. Virgil and Dante are welcomed by the old poets, Homer, Horace, Ovid, and Lucan. In Canto 5, we find the demon Minos. See image 8. This canto is probably the most popular canto of Inferno. Here Dante sees the lustful sinners, Semiramis, Cleopatra, Helen of Troy, Paris, and other carnal sinners. He talks to Francesca da Rimini, who narrates her love story using the language of the poets of the sweet new style. She was married to Cianciotto, lord of the city of Rimini, but fell in love with Paolo, her brother-in-law. Amor, che al cor gentil ratto s'apprende, love that quickly kindles a gentle heart. In this canto, the word amore appears 5 times. Dante wants to know what tempted them and led them to sin. It was a book, the story of Lancelot. When they read that the lovers kissed, Paolo looked at Francesca and kissed her. The poet has the lovers remain together, embraced for eternity. They're still in love with each other. At the end of the canto, Dante feigns, and I quote, "E caddi come corpo morto cade," fell as a dead body falls. And that's image 9. Besides these 5 canti, the book includes Canto 10, the heretics who believe that the soul dies with the body. Here we find the political figure of Farinata degli Uberti and Cavalcante dei Cavalcanti, father of Guido, Dante's best friend, is also there. Also included is Canto 13, with the violent sinners against their body, the suicides. Dante speaks to Pier della Vigna, a poet of the Sicilian school. Image 10. In Canto 15, there are sinners of sodomy. Among these souls is the poet Brunetto Latini. Canto 26 presents us with the soul of Ulysses, and that's image 11. Dante's Ulysses does not return to his family in Ithaca. He is a Renaissance man who wants to discover the world on the other side of the Atlantic Ocean. He is a romantic man looking for experience. Thus does Ulysses speak to his men, and I will quote the Italian, you have the English. Considerate la vostra semenza, fatti non foste a viver come bruti, ma per seguir virtute e conoscenza. Then we have Canto 33, also included, that contains the story of Ugolino. I didn't put an image for this. His tragic death, because it's tragic, and that of his sons and grandsons. Of Purgatorio, included are some scenes of brotherhood, and Canto 5, because Canto 5 can be compared to Canto 5 of Inferno. So I like this comparative study. Of Paradiso, the book introduces Beatrice's smile, how her smile keeps moving him higher and higher, and Canto 33, which contains the famous prayer to the Virgin. The first line of this prayer inspired Michelangelo's Pietà. Vergine, madre, figlia del tuo figlio. Virgin Mother, daughter of your son. And this is why many people say, why she's so young looking and Christ looks older. So that was because Michelangelo loved Dante, and you would find him always with the Divine Comedy in his hands. In a period really when Petrarch was the vate, he was the poet. But for Michelangelo, he would say, there's nothing but Dante for me. Okay, so he tried, as we see with the Last Judgment and all, he tries to put in color, in drawing, or in sculpture, whatever Dante says. Of Petrarch included are 10 of his most famous poems from his Canzoniere. Since my time is limited here, I was told 20 minutes, I don't know if I'm there already, your handout gives you an idea of Petrarch's poems. I have few of them. Of Giovanni Boccaccio, included are 10 of his most popular stories from the Decamerone. I don't have any in your handout, but it's unbelievable, okay? That's the human comedy. This is why it was Boccaccio to call the comedy of Dante divine comedy, to separate it from his work, which is the human comedy, how man really is. You can see the next period that will come, right? Because here they are already putting the seed of the greatness of men, which will be with the Renaissance coming up. I would like to include sometime these poets in the Renaissance, you know, because, but the Middle Ages of Italy was already a Renaissance, I think, personally. I would like to thank all of you for being here today, colleagues, my chair, my new colleague, former students. My daughter was supposed to take me here and drive me here. She said, this time you don't have to do the 2-hour drive. But then something happened, an emergency with the refrigerator. It happened last night, and the man could only come between this time and that time, 5 hours, and so forth. I said, don't worry, me la caverò. I shall do it by myself. I always did things by myself. But most of all, I would like to thank Professor Gigliotti, even though he's not here, for organizing Central Authors for so many years. And I like also to mention a friend of mine, come si chiama, an old friend of mine that started this program, Armando. Do you know him? Well, he started this Central Authors. And I spoke here in 2006 on Savonarola. I don't know if some of you were here, but I think the whole department came, but then I was teaching, so I had students and everything else. Now I'm retired, but I'm still working, okay? For those of you who would like to hear this presentation in Italian, I have published on YouTube 8 short videos that you can find by clicking the www.youtube.com and then at Prof. Passaro Italian Medieval Text. Okay? I had to keep them very short. I have really videos of 45 minutes. No, they don't accept any of that. So the beginning, I just talked briefly about the book. Then you must follow from the right to the left, because some people are getting back to me that they listened to Boccaccio. I said, but it was the last one. What are you doing, starting from the end and going to the beginning? Okay, so, and now I am continuing the story of the Italian language, the journey of the Italian language, and I'm writing a text on humanists and poets of the Italian Renaissance. There are at least 32. We did it in one of our courses for 476. Okay, so you may see that coming out in a couple of years, and then I'll be glad to come in and present it, even though I'll be a little older. Every time you see me, I'm a little older. What can I say? Not higher, not pretty, but older. I want to thank you, and if you have any questions, I will try and answer them.
To start things off.
I don't have a question.
Sure.
I have a comment, and it's always a pleasure to listen to you and all the poetry. And I just want to commend you for doing this. It's fantastic.
Oh,
it is
you.
really a work of love. All of this.
Yes, it is, because I usually say when I lost my husband in '91, I embraced the Italian language, and I said that's going to be my passion. Yes, yeah. Carlo, you who have written on Dante, have you been thinking more? Because you did Guido.
Oh, mi piace molto Guido.
Yes.
I'm very fond of Guido da Montefeltro.
Yes, and when I know I came across something that I put it aside for you, but I will mail it to you when I find it again. Because when I know that there is an interest in my students, I try to feed them, because this way the interest continues.
Of course, Ulysses is very close to my heart.
I know, of course.
Considerate la vostra semenza.
Yeah. 26 and 27, you're Guido. Yeah, da Montefeltro. Yes. Okay.
And I would thank you for your guidance when I was working with Canto 26.
It was a pleasure.
And 27.
Yes. Yeah, we had quite a few students that we graduated. Well, how about you, Roberta? What are you up to?
Hopefully, I would like to graduate in December.
Oh, okay. But then what does the school do without you? So maybe it's better that you stay a little longer, right?
Ottima domanda.
Professoressa,
Sì.
one doesn't have to go away just because
I know,
one
just move
graduates.
closer to the school. I didn't do it in 32 years. Should I do it now? Yes. Thank you. Thank you again.